So I'm also, before we get started, I want to give you a brief description of what the Stewards Council is and how you can get involved, okay? So the Stewards Council, it's also known as My Siblings Keeper, is a peer-to-peer program where Black workers develop the skills and knowledge to address workplace issues confidently. Steward leaders participate in multiple training sessions focused on the following topics: wage theft, discrimination, racism, anti-Blackness, workplace rights, safe work environments, and also we want to deal with your health and well-being, right? Once you're trained, our steward leaders, we want you guys to play a key role in disseminating this information throughout the community. My idea and my hope and the hope of the Black Worker Center is that we have an interconnected web of Black workers who are ready to be a resource for one another, right? I want you guys to be able to educate your fellow coworkers, your peers, your family, the entire community, and provide them in guidance in identifying, creating, and processing workplace claims. I also want you guys to oh gosh, now I forgot what I was going to say. Anyways, the trainings are held every 2 months on the first Wednesday of the month. And if you're interested, please don't forget to put the email in your chat, in the chat. And you can also take a picture of the screen. My work email and my cell phone number is in there. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Nikki St. Germain from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and she can tell you her role there and give us our presentation.
Hi, y'all. How you doing tonight? My name is Nikki St. Germain, and I'm super excited to be here. Tara invited us to come out in January, and unfortunately, we had to postpone it until March. And we completely understand because, November, we all had COVID. And then in February, I had RSV, which I will honestly say, Tara, I just came back to work last week. So it's really good that this week is the week we're all here together. I am working from home, so I want to give you all the caveats.
You're on mute, Nikki.
Nikki,
yep, I just saw that I was muted. I was going to say I am working from home, everybody. And I have two very lovely small children. They are 6 and 4. I hear them crying outside my door. So I hope that they will not come in, but if they do, they will likely say hi, and then I will try very quickly to shove them out the door. So I'm just giving you all the heads up that likely most of you sometimes are in the same space as I am, that we have children at home and we love them and we cuddle them to pieces, and then sometimes we have to push them outside the door. I am here today to talk about the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, who has been working with the LA Black Worker Center for a while. We've had the great opportunity to have you as our partners. You have been bringing us cases. You have been coming to some of our events. We were so blessed to have you come to the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, which we had this past September at our building in downtown Los Angeles, which we were super excited about. And I can't wait to invite you to the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, which we're going to be hosting this upcoming August. For those of you who may not know, obviously Martin Luther King was amazing in the work that he did, and he got us to the 60th, or he got us to the Civil Rights Act, which actually codified the creation of the EEOC. So we oftentimes worry at times that the EEOC may disappear, but it's actually been codified into law because of the work of Martin Luther King. And so that is, the EEOC was created as part of the Civil Rights Act. And so that's coming up on 60 years. July 2nd of this is the celebration of the Civil Rights Act. And we're going to be celebrating it in August. And of course, Tara, you and all of your friends at the LA Black Worker Center will be receiving an invitation to our big giant celebration of that. Not only this year, but then the 60th anniversary of the EEOC itself. We're going to be having a homecoming next year, which we are super excited about. But as much as I love a good party planning and a celebration, which I do, we are here to talk about, just in general, the federal workplace protections for individuals. I have a lot of slides to go through and a lot of information to impart on you. Tara has the actual PDFs of it. I'm going to stress some of the most important things that I want you to take away today. I want you to actually have the slides so you have the information, because I feel like sometimes it's just a lot of legalese, but there's really important things that I want you to have to take away from this. And some of it is really just my phone number and my email address, and the phone number and email address of your point of contact as well. We have a senior investigator that is assigned to the LA Black Worker Center, so that you have a direct contact to an individual within our office to be able to ask questions to refer cases to just talk to about situations that are happening, whether it's you or it's individuals that you work with that you're advocating for within the community. We're going to have some time to talk today about what you're seeing. I do have a bunch of slides, but I told Tara, if you've got questions, feel free to stop me. I know we're going to save the majority of the questions for the end, but if you put something in the chat and Tara feels that it is something that we need to stop in the moment, she's going to stop me in the moment. Otherwise, we are going to save the majority of them for the end of today's presentation. So long-winded, and I talk really fast because I am from the East Coast, so I never really got kind of the LA slow thing. I got more of the New York talk really fast thing. I am with the EEOC. I am the lead outreach and education coordinator. I am the public relations manager for the LA district, which means I cover everything from Central California all the way south to the border, east to Nevada. I cover central to southern Nevada, and then I cover Hawaii and all of the Pacific Islands as well. Who is the EEOC? We are the federal law enforcement agency tasked with protecting civil rights violations in employment. We are a neutral fact-finding agency, which means we are not siding with the individual that has been harmed or the employer. We are here to see whether or not there's a violation of federal law. However, once we do see that there is a violation of federal law, we obviously are on the public side and the individual who has been violated. We have a vision, which really is looking for a respectful and inclusive workplace with equal employment opportunity for all. And we want to get there through preventing and remedying unlawful employment discrimination and advancing equal opportunity for all in the workplace. You may hear sometimes, and I'm going to say this especially because we're walking into a political year, right? We're going into a political environment that sometimes this may be something where one party may say this or one party may say that, but that's really not what we here are here to do. We are lifelong civil servants that are really here to advance the mission of the agency, which is to create inclusive and equal employment opportunities for all within the workplace. And what is it ultimately that we do? We are responsible for enforcing these federal laws that are enacted by Congress that make it illegal to discriminate against individuals who are job applicants, employees, or former employees. They may be individuals who are temporary employees, individuals who are immigrants or migrant employees. We look at accepting charges of employment discrimination, and we'll talk about how we do that. We investigate charges of discrimination. We mediate charges of discrimination. We'll kind of go through a whole flow chart of how we do that, but we have licensed certified mediators on staff. We try to resolve charges of discrimination through either mediation, whether we do it through settlement, or even if we find a violation, through conciliation, which is a more structured version of a settlement. We have an entire legal department that looks at litigating cases on behalf of the general public and the individuals that were harmed in these cases. We look to educate individuals, which is my sole job, is to go out and educate the general public on what their rights are. We educate employers on what their obligation is. And we do a lot more. We work within the federal side to make sure that individuals that work for the federal government have the right to have hearings if they feel they've been discriminated against, etc. We are all throughout the country. We have 15 locations. For you, you really only need to know we're here in Los Angeles. We have offices in San Diego. We have offices in Fresno. As long as you've got my location and my information, I can get you connected to whoever you need. If you know somebody who's in Memphis, I got your connection. If you know somebody in Chicago, I got your connection. I can connect you to whoever you need. Locally here, your closest person is going to be me. When we talk about discrimination is really treating someone differently or less favorably, unjust, and prejudicial. And when we talk about proving discrimination in the workplace, what we are really saying is that we are looking for evidence of an inward feeling expressed outwardly, right? So we are a federal law enforcement agency that is looking for evidence of the inward discriminatory animus that someone may have, even if they don't know that they have it. If it is an unconscious bias or as something that they are unaware that they may have, and the outward expression of that. So employment discrimination occurs when individuals are being treated differently or they're being harassed because they belong to a protected category, right? And then we divide protected categories based upon how Congress has issued protected categories. Currently, right now, we have 9 of those. We have protected categories based upon race. We have color, which is skin pigmentation. So difference between light or dark skin, but possibly within the same racial category. National origin or ethnicity, which also includes language or accent. Religion, sex. Sex can also include sexual orientation, gender identity, or even pregnancy. Age, if you're over the age of 40 for the federal laws, but I will say state laws covers individuals even if you're under the age of 40. So if something were to happen and it's for somebody under the age of 40, don't feel afraid to reach out. Even if it's something we may not cover, we can always refer you to the right spot. Disability, genetic information, and pregnancy. Pregnancy is our newest law. So yes, we covered pregnancy under sex, but having the right to an accommodation based upon your pregnancy is brand new. And we're going to talk about that. And then retaliation is a statute that, or is a protected category that is covered under every single one of these bases that we have. I'm going to break down each one of these categories and each one of the laws that covers all of these categories, just so that we have a very basic understanding of it. Once again, Tara has the PowerPoint, just that you can refer back to it. I don't want you to have a basic, a legal knowledge of this. I just want you to know, oh, this is a very basic information. I'm going to call Nikki or I'm going to call Latanya if I have questions about this. The retaliation clause pertains to all statutes. Retaliation is the #1 thing that is filed with our agency. 54% of all charges filed with our agency in fiscal year 2022, because I don't have numbers yet for fiscal year 2023, allege retaliation. And that's because most often individuals file alleging retaliation because it's just something that people do. If you accuse somebody of something, they're more likely to come after you, right? Retaliation occurs, and what we say when we're looking at it under EEOC law is that it is illegal for an employer to take a negative employment action against a person or retaliate against them because they filed a charge or they complained or reported about discrimination or harassment in the workplace. So they either went to the EEOC, or maybe they went to California Civil Rights Department. So that's filing a charge. Or maybe they went internally to their own human rights department. So they complained or reported to their employer about discrimination or harassment. Or maybe they participated in an employment discrimination proceeding, like their internal HR was looking into allegations of harassment and they participated into an investigation about that. Or heaven forbid, the EEOC subpoenaed them into participating into an investigation. Or maybe they requested an accommodation for their religion or their pregnancy or their disability. Or maybe they were associated with somebody who complained about racial harassment in the workplace. So maybe they were married to somebody, or maybe they had a parent that complained about, or a spouse complained about harassment within the workplace. That's association with somebody. If they're associated with somebody who complained about it, and then they also had negative employment action taken against them, they were fired, or they were disciplined, or they were deported, now all of a sudden that is a retaliatory complaint. So let's break it down a little bit further, right? So let's dive into this a little bit more. So Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, yay, this is what Martin Luther King fought for so hard. This is what we're coming up for on our 60th anniversary on July 2nd of this year. This is what we look at in covering race, color, national origin, religion, reasonable accommodation under religion, and sex, right? So we cover race discrimination. Race can be Black, white, Asian. It can be color discrimination, so different pigmentation, but within the same race. National origin or ethnicity, so that could be the region you are from, the country or origin you're from, maybe it's the language that you speak. It could be your religion or your need for a religious accommodation based upon your religion. It could be sex, whether it is your sex based upon male, female. It could be your sex to include pregnancy. So if you are being treated differently because you are pregnant and you are denied a promotion because you are pregnant, or you're denied a hire because you are pregnant. Because of the Bostock decision that came out in June of 2020. If you are denied hire, or you are fired because of your sexual orientation, or because you are transgender, it could be because of your sexual orientation or transgender. It could be sexual harassment. That is also covered under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So we cover all of those protected bases under the Civil Rights Act. Under the Equal Pay Act, we cover the difference in pay based upon sex. And this is where we're looking at just male and just female. This protects both men and women. So this is compensation. This isn't just looking at wages. This could be if somebody has a difference in, somebody may get a car allowance, but somebody else doesn't. Someone may get a different commission structure, but somebody else doesn't. Someone may receive overtime, but somebody else doesn't. The world of pay is large, and we look at the entire world of pay when we look at the Equal Pay Act. The Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, which we just celebrated the 15th year anniversary, was the first piece of legislation that was signed into law by then President Barack Obama. So the Equal Pay Act said that it was illegal to pay individuals different based upon sex, but you had 300 days in order to file that claim. Lilly Ledbetter, who worked for Goodyear Tire, did not find out until 20 years into her employment with Goodyear Tire that she was paid differently. And when she brought this case to court, the court said, yeah, well, so sorry for you. It sucks that you didn't find out for 20 years that you weren't paid the same. But the decision to not pay you the same was done 20 years ago. It doesn't matter that for 20 years, Goodyear kept making the decision to not pay you the same. It's just that they made the original decision to not pay you the same as the men with the same job 20 years ago. So you do not have standing to file this case. So Barack Obama made the decision and signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act that amended the Equal Pay Act. And I say all of this, the big takeaway is to say that every single paycheck is a new violation to the Equal Pay Act. And that's what the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act gives us. So employers can no longer hide behind, well, we made this decision 20 years ago, so we are no longer liable. It's not when you found out that we made this decision. It's that every single time we issue you a paycheck, we are reaffirming our decision to pay you unequally. So the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act gave us a bigger bite at the apple, and we are very grateful for that. So it gives us more teeth when it comes to the Equal Pay Act. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act says anybody over the age of 40 cannot be treated differently. Can I tell you how many cases we're seeing, y'all? Especially after COVID, we are seeing so many cases of individuals who are being treated poorly in the workplace after 40. We got $10 million out of Jet Propulsion Laboratories here in LA because they decided to have a giant RIF, and they riffed everybody over 40, and they kept all the young people because it was cheaper to pay them. We are currently going after meathead movers because they're only hiring student athletes. And they're like, well, nobody old wants to move boxes. And we're like, okay, fine. But customer service people on the phone, it doesn't matter how old you are. And let me tell you, AARP came back and said, well, I bet The Rock could move some boxes, and he's over 40. So you know what? We go after them too. So if you guys see things that are going on, this is a part of the EEOC's strategic employment or strategic enforcement priority. Individuals over 40 are being targeted. There's significant stereotypes that are happening. We're seeing it not only for individuals over 40, but the intersection of race in individuals over 40, of sex in individuals over 40. Like, oh, individuals over 40 and female, well, they don't have the opportunity to do things. They're, having to take care of people who are older. So now we have caregiver discrimination and things like that. So please bring those type of cases to us. We are looking for those types of things. And I'm talking fast. Tara, do I have anything I need to address right now, or I'm still good to keep going?
You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm talking fast. I know it. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, y'all. Americans with Disabilities Act. If y'all have a disability, please bring it to me, because can I tell you, employers cannot figure out this law to save their life. And myself and the director of Fresno laugh all the time that if you give me a case with a disability, I will give you a violation. So employers can't figure this out. Individuals who have a disability. Okay, let me just say this. 35 years ago, it was perfectly legal for the United States to say if you had a disability, you were not allowed into the movie theater. So if you couldn't go into a movie theater, you weren't allowed in. You weren't allowed to call people. You weren't allowed into a workplace. You weren't allowed into a restaurant. It amazes me every single day that the Americans with Disabilities Act only came out in 1990 and that we only amended it in 2009. So the Americans with Disability Act is really focused on, and this is what I want you to take away, not whether or not an individual has a disability or is a qualified individual with a disability, but whether or not the employer can provide an accommodation. Congress amended this law in 2009 to make the focus of the law to be on whether or not the employer can provide an accommodation. Yes, the employee should have a disability. which means they should have a medical condition that significantly impacts a major life activity. And then they should be qualified to do the job, which means that they have the skill, the education, or the experience, and they can perform the essential functions of that job with or without a reasonable accommodation. And then after that, the entire focus should be whether or not the employer can provide a reasonable accommodation. An employer cannot get hung up on whether or not, you know what, we got stairs in our building and we really need this employee to walk stairs. That is not an essential function of a job. That is not what an employee is required to do. Therefore, the employer needs to work around that. I cannot tell you the number of cases I've had where the reason an employer does not hire an employee or they put an employee out of work is because an employee cannot open a door. An employee has a back impairment that does not allow them to open a door, and the employer puts them out of work. I'm currently dealing with a case right now that has that situation. So please bring me your disability cases. 80% of all individuals within the United States, according to the Job Accommodation Network, which is a nonprofit national association, 80% of the population will fall under the Americans with Disabilities Act at some point in their lifetime, which means the majority of us on this call at some point in time will be qualified individuals with a disability. And employers do not understand how to deal with those individuals within the work environment. We see a lot of these cases post-COVID. Oftentimes, employers feel that individuals should tell them they have a disability. An individual does not have to tell a person if they have a disability unless they need an accommodation. And they can tell their employer if they have a disability at any point in time during their time of employment. We have a lot of information on our website. I don't want you to know all of this. I want you to know where to come to get more information. Myself and the information and Latania's information about guidance regarding disability-related examinations and the type of medical information that can be asked by employers. All right, so this is type of information I want you to come to find from me. Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Congress got super forward thinking in this sense back in 2009. They said, oh, hey, we don't think employers should know about our genetic makeup. There are certain things that we may be genetically predisposed to, things like heart disease, certain cancer genes, diabetes, things like that. Our employers may be able to find out about that information either from us, just because some of us may overshare through social media postings if we are noting that we're part of a breast cancer walk or something because our mom has breast cancer, etc. And they may make negative employment decisions based upon that. There is a law that stops that from happening. Send those people to us, please. Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. This is brand spanking new. I cannot tell you how excited I am. Prior to June 27th, 2023, employers were allowed to just not allow pregnant people to have extra bathroom breaks, which makes zero sense to me. But you know, even if you grow an extra human being and eyeballs and lungs and a heart and bladders and everything else, and they're sitting on your bladder and it's an extra 10 pounds plus the whole extra organ of a placenta, none of that matters. Even if you had to pee, your employer didn't have to give you an extra right to go to the bathroom. This requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations to individuals that are affected by pregnancy, childbirth, or other related medical conditions. It is very brand new. This law, the accommodations mirror those accommodations required under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which means it's a very high standard that employers have to meet to provide those accommodations. And we are still so new into this law that we don't have all of the regulations We're still figuring that out, and hopefully we're going to have some more information for you soon. But if you hear situations where individuals are not only pregnant, but they may have either decided to or even not decided to have an abortion, and they're being treated differently at work, or they may have had a miscarriage, or they may have menstruation issues, or even menopausal issues, endometriosis, anything having to do with the menstrual cycle, or anything that has to deal with childbirth or other related medical conditions, please send them our way, because this is a new area of the law that is a strategic enforcement priority for our agency that we are very interested in exploring. We are very interested in looking at harassment, and harassment has always been a hot button issue for our agency. Recently, we have done a number of cases, particularly in the Inland Empire, having to deal with racial harassment. The LA Times did a pretty good deep dive into a number of cases of Black harassment perpetrated by Hispanic individuals. And then there was a big case with the USC facilities that were being built by the construction trade, in which the subcontractors were harassing Black individuals with graffiti and the porter potties and things like this. And the larger contractors on the site were just kind of burying their heads in the sand and saying, well, we can't control our subcontractors. Well, we don't stand for that. That is not how the law is written, and we will not sit by and allow that type of harassment to occur in the workplace. So harassment is illegal under all the laws that we enforce. It is unwelcome or conduct that is based upon a protected basis. The objects of harassment can be anyone, such as the individuals that are the target of the harassment, or witnesses to the unwelcome comments or conduct that do not have to be the targets of the harassment, or even individuals that are part of the protected basis of the targets of the harassment. The alleged harassers can be individuals of the same or different protected basis as the object of the harassment. They can be supervisors, they can be coworkers, they can be non-employees, and they can be third parties, which means they could be your subcontractors. They could be individuals such as customers within a restaurant or a hotel industry. They could be individuals such as your supervisor. They could be your coworkers. They could be just the UPS guy that's coming into the hotel or the building that you're working in. So it could be anybody that it was within the work environment that there is control that your employer has. We've even done such cases in which harassment has occurred within prison systems or within hospitals, where it is the patients or it is the prisoners that has conducted the harassment, and the prison or the hospital has not removed the individual from the harassing environment. Yes, they may not be able to stop the prisoner or the patient from the harassing conduct because of the situation they're in, but they can remove the individual from that harassing conduct. We've even done cases in which the harassing conduct has occurred in a gaming situation. So it's occurred where it's been all of your coworkers are in a gaming situation online in a role-playing situation, and there has been sexual harassment that's occurred there that has then had an impact on the work environment. We've done cases like that. So harassment can occur in many different environments and be perpetrated by many different individuals. When we say it's unwelcome, we say that it is unsolicited, it is not invited, and it is undesirable. We see so many different types of this harassment, everything from hanging nooses at work to derogatory comments or cartoons, asking people when they're ready to retire, or making fun of people's accents. We have a case right now out of Tennessee where somebody has forcibly tried to remove a person's hijab at work, telling individuals, women, that their place is at home with their children instead of in the workplace, conveying stereotypes and really making fun of individuals with disabilities in the workplace. Things that aren't covered is just regular simple teasing or an offhand comment. But when it is really targeting towards that protected basis, towards those things about yourself that you cannot change, that's when it falls under our statutes. And that's when it becomes that hostile work environment where you feel that you cannot get away from it. And it is really changing the work environment that you are in, right? I want you to remember that a hostile work environment, you do not need to be the target of the hostile work environment. You just need to be witnessing it. You're around it, you see it, you are now in that hostile work environment. You are affected by that conduct. Witnesses of harassment are victims of harassment. And once again, as I've kind of given a couple of examples, harassing conduct outside of a work environment may actually give rise to liability within the work environment. So we give examples here of a business trip or a business party, but I'm telling you, we did a case of online role-playing gaming, and we totally found liability within the workplace. So, all right, trying to make this fast, and I know I said 45 minutes, and I feel like I'm gonna go a little over, but I'm trying to make it fast for you. Nuts and bolts of jurisdiction and coverage. Okay, who's protected? I want you to know employees and applicants for employment are protected, right? So if you're trying to get a job or you're working, you're covered. If you used to work for an employer, you're covered. If you're a temporary worker, I don't care if you're part-time, if you're just doing seasonal help, if you're there for the holidays, if you're a migrant worker, doesn't matter, you're covered. If you're an applicant or you're participating in a training or an apprenticeship program or a pre-apprenticeship program, you're covered. If you're undocumented, you're covered. We don't care about documentation status. You're covered. We care about whether or not the employer is violating the law, not whether or not you're here illegally. What we don't cover are independent contractors, but don't let the employer dissuade you and say you're an independent contractor when you may not be. Come to us anyways and let us do the analysis, because we have a high threshold to meet in order to cover whether or not you're an independent contractor. And sometimes employers like to get around the law by saying independent contractor when you're really not. We also don't cover volunteers or interns, but once again, I know who does, so come to us anyways, and we'll get you to the right place, okay? EEOC charges. They can be filed against your regular Walmart, your Lowe's, so your private sector companies, if they have 15 or more employees. It can be your small dentist place, anything like that. So it can be your really small location. It can be super large corporations. For ADEA, so your age cases, it's 20 or more employees. If it's equal pay, I only need 1 employee. So super small for that. We can file against county, state, local governments, employment agencies. If you're a staffing agency, we're going to file not only against a staffing agency, but also against where you're placed, because we got to see who's doing the discrimination. Is it the staffing agency or is it the placement agency where you're being placed? We can file against unions. We can look at the training programs, applicants, and participants. How is it going out? We really look at all of this. We're currently looking at how teachers are currently being sorted into their education qualifications out of Las Vegas to see whether or not how they're being ranked is viable on whether or not it's being discriminatory, because we're finding that those within minorities are not having the same ranking as those who are white. So, you know, we're trying to see whether or not even in that sense, there may be discriminatory animus. Coverage for unions and union members under federal laws. I just really want to point this out because we're seeing a lot more of this, particularly when we're looking at some construction projects. And I bring this up because we have some mega construction projects coming up in the area, particularly under some of the Biden administration's Department of Transportation issues. because they're going to be looking at those high-speed rail cases between Las Vegas and LA, and they're looking at some other projects. But for unions, we're looking at referral practices. So if for unions, they're only referring certain races, certain sexes to certain jobs. So those jobs are segregated. We want to know about those. Labor organizations and practices. Practices undertaken by apprenticeships and other training programs. Who are they allowing in? Are they segregating those types of programs? How are they advertising and recruiting? Are they being very select in those types of programs where they're only allowing certain individuals in, thereby limiting the pool available later on once they're referring out for programming? And then union stewards may be considered employees of unions. So it becomes all sorts of crazy. So unions, yes, may actually be employees, as well as also unions under federal law for NLRB too. So once again, come to us if you have questions so that we can do the digging on the legal side for you. Timeliness. This is super important. Please hit this in your head. 300 days within the state of California, within the state of Nevada, within the state of Hawaii. So let's just really focus on that. 10 months. 10 months from the last date of harm, you got to get into my office. You got to file with the EEOC. Under the laws that we enforce, unless it's equal pay, then you can go straight to court. For all the other laws, you have to go through the administrative procedure and come to us first and file a charge. Equal pay says you can go straight to court if you want. But everything else, you have to come to us first. You have 10 months from the date of harm to do that. All right, this is the required number of employees. We already kind of talked about this. I do want to hit that who can file a charge. The majority of our charges are filed by individuals. So about 99% of our charges, 98% of our charges are filed by the individual who's been harmed, right? They're the ones that come to us. But then we also have something called third-party charges. And this could be individuals who file on behalf of a person. So it could be a family member. It could be the estate of a family member. So maybe somebody passed away and their estate files on behalf of them. It could be you. It could be the LA Black Worker Center files on behalf of an individual or a group of individuals who you believe have been discriminated or harassed within the workplace. We have done a number of cases in which third-party charges have come in that have really resulted in significant cases. The Thai Community Development Center filed on behalf of over 500 Thai workers and is the largest human trafficking case that has been seen as a civil rights case. We currently to date are over, oh my gosh, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. It is over $16 million in recovery for 500 Thai workers in human trafficking for them. But those were third-party charges. Those are individuals like you who are on the ground that knows what is happening. Because let's be honest, we're a federal agency. We don't know what's happening. We are the farthest thing from who the community is comfortable talking to, right? You know what is happening on the ground before we do. And you are who the community trusts before they're going to trust us. So individuals who may not want to have their name out there, who may want to remain anonymous for a period of time, it would be your name on a charge. So that's a third-party charge. Sometimes individuals bring to us cases that they are not comfortable putting their name on the charge, but they bring us enough information that we can then go forward. And that's a commissioner's charge or a directed charge. We did the Activision case, which got us $18 million, which is the second largest sexual harassment case resolution that we had. That was a commissioner's charge. That was an anonymous letter that came to our agency alleging sexual harassment against Activision Blizzard. The case that I mentioned about the moving case where they only wanted student athletes, that's a directed charge. That came to us because we just happened to see a billboard sign that had that and we started digging. So that was a directed charge where there was no body And since that time, we have found numerous individuals who've been affected by this recruiting of this case, but we filed a directed charge against these individuals. So that's a case in which we filed a directed charge against Meathead Movers in this ADA case. So that's how we can utilize our ability to find information, to keep people anonymous if need be in those types of situations. We cover every single aspect that you could find in a job situation. And if I don't have it on this slide, please don't worry about it. I'm going to cover it. We're going to cover everything from your hiring to firing to harassment to disability to accommodation. I promise you, I will cover whatever is happening within your work environment, because we have the most wonderful and creative litigants within my LA district, and I'm going to cover it for you however we possibly can. Once again, my regional attorney has made civil rights, or has made human trafficking a civil rights violation recognized by the Ninth Circuit Appellate Court. So we are huge. How to file a charge. We're all online, and guys, it is hard and it is not easy, and I am not going to pretend that it is not lengthy. I am going to be brutally honest with you. This is the website. Tara is going to share it with you. This is what it looks like. This is how you sign in. This is the boringness. I'm not going to pretend any other way. This is what happens afterwards, though. So this is where it gets fun, right? So we're going to take a complaint. We have a couple of options, right? So we can take a complaint, and we do have, and we'll talk you through the whole process. So the first part of the process is really saying, hey, what you got? Is this jurisdictional? What's the evidence that you have? Because remember when I said at the beginning, discrimination is always about an internal animus coming out and having it expressed outwardly. So what we're looking for is either direct evidence. Do we have somebody saying, I'm really tired of all these old people dragging us down. They're not innovative and I don't want them around, right? Do we have people calling people the N-word in the workplace in Spanish and giggling on the line in the warehouses? You know, do we have write-ups that say you've complained of sexual harassment and you're causing an issue within the workplace, so you're receiving disciplinary action? You know, do we have that? Do we have direct evidence? Or do we have, hey, I reported this, and then after I reported this, all of a sudden, this is what happened? Or, hey, I am doing the same thing that my counterpart is doing, and we're in the same situation, and they're white and I'm Hispanic, and this is how I'm being treated, and it's treated differently. And so I have comparator analysis. So we're going to talk somebody through. So this is this investigation. We're neutral throughout this process. We're digging. We're pulling all of these different levers. We're trying to see, is there evidence to support a violation of federal law? And we're going to make a finding. And throughout this process, we're going to be neutral, because remember, we're a neutral fact-finding agency. During this process, we have the opportunity to mediate and give a case over to mediation and see whether or not our licensed certified mediators could resolve this case prior to the making of a finding. It is voluntary, and sometimes employers and the individual want to do it, and sometimes they don't. Because it's voluntary, we can't make anybody do it. Investigation, not so voluntary. You got to do it. And then if employer doesn't want to do it, we subpoena. And if they don't answer a subpoena, the court says they got to do it. And if they still don't want to do it, then we make a finding based upon the evidence before us. And that's not going to go well for the employer at that point. Now, if we say, hey, we did the best we could, but we could not find the evidence to support a violation at this time, we allow the individual to file a private suit. I want you all to remember that the evidence necessary to find a violation for us is the preponderance of evidence, which is only 51%. So this is not a beyond a reasonable doubt in criminal court. This is civil law. This is more likely than not something may have occurred. So making a finding, insufficient evidence, we're never going to say discrimination or harassment or retaliation didn't occur. We're just going to say at this time, unfortunately, we don't have the evidence to support it, but we're going to give you the opportunity to continue your case in court. Now, if we find a violation, we put on a different hat. We are no longer neutral. Company has messed up, and we are going to resolve this case. We're going to try to conciliate it. Conciliation is a settlement agreement with teeth. We're really going to try to get the employer to the table to resolve this, but still voluntary. We do everything we can to get the employer to the table, but they can say they don't want to do it. If they decide they don't want to do it, or maybe even the individual doesn't want to do it, they still have the right to a private suit, right? But at this point in time, the EEOC may also say, you know what? We're going to litigate this case. This is a case like maybe Meathead Movers that we say really has a large impact here. And we really want to take this case to court because we could have a larger impact on an industry, a region, or a group of individuals that we may have a strategic enforcement impact on. And what I really want to stress here, no matter what, is everything about our process is free. If you read a headline, like in the Activision case, that $18 million went to sexual harassment individuals, all $18 million went to sexual harassment individuals. EEOC takes no money at any point in time during any of our cases. We serve solely for the public interest. So anything that we get goes right back to the public. In fact, if for some reason we have money left over in any of our cases, we actually go and find a community-based organization to send it back to, because we can't keep it and we don't want to keep it. We want to put it back into the community in order to help the community grow better. Remedies that are available for individuals, and I'm going to wrap this up, Tara. I promised you under an hour, and here I am. I know, I'm so sorry. Back pay, front pay, reasonable accommodations, all these really fun things. Please keep up to date. Oh my gosh, go to our website, learn all of these things. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our mailing list. Reach out to me. This is the most important thing that you need to know. This is your contact for the Black Worker Center. Tara's going to send it out to you here in Los Angeles. You can reach out to LaTanya Valentine. She is your person. LaTanya Valentine, senior investigator. She has been with the EEOC for over 20 years. She is one of the most knowledgeable people I know. She has got you. This is her direct email. This is her direct phone number. She can answer your questions. I've got time for questions. If Tara says I got time for questions, it's a little iffy because I kept you pretty long, but this is my direct information too, which is also in your packet. And I'm so sorry, Tara, I kept you too long. Stop sharing.
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that impactful presentation. I'm sure everybody learned something new, and it was just amazing. I'm going to open it up to questions. Also, the Goose cohort, if you haven't put your information in the chat, your name, so we know, because some of the names on the screen aren't quite, we can't decipher who it is. But, or you could take a picture of this and show it to us tomorrow, okay? We can open this up for if whoever who wants to stay and ask a couple questions, maybe 10 15 minutes, if that's okay with you, Nikki.
I am here. Some people are asking for the contacts again, so if you don't mind, I'll just throw the contacts back up on the screen.
Okay.
If you don't mind that, I'll just throw that back up really quick, and we can still ask questions. But let me just throw LaTanya back on up.
If you have questions, or raise your hand and we will
take yourself off mute.
Yeah, take yourself off mute. Perfect. People are like, oh, I got the pipeline to LaTanya. It is all good.
I know, right? So
Right.
please call LaTanya.
Right.
And then this is my information. Call me
Mhm.
or call Tara. She can
Yes.
call me.
Mhm.
So being brutally honest with whoever is left in our class.
Oh, Kyle has raised his
Oh,
hand.
yeah.